All right, this week I am going to attempt to review arrays. So we did array lists last week. We'll do arrays this week and then hopefully classes next week. And everything will just be hunky-dory. Okay, so this is a class. I'm not going to have us create this class or do anything, but these are the pieces of the class. So remember, they're just telling you some fields and constructors are not being shown. We have the one constructor here, and so this is all I can use. I'm going to assume this is all there is, and so that's all I can use. There is a get name, there is a get age, there's a lays eggs, so this is a boolean, and it returns true if it lays eggs. There is an is cute, returns true if it's cute. You have no idea what the ones that I was thinking about using. And then this one here, it creates a toString. So these are the methods I can use in association with a chicken. So a chicken is a box. The chicken has these methods and the only methods I can use. Okay, I can't access anything but get name, get age, lays eggs, is cute, and the toString. That's it. Okay, I can't access any fields. I can't access anything unless I have the code, and the code is these methods. Okay, so think of chicken as a box. Now, when I come over here, when it's an object, it's a box. Let's just say that. Then we come onto the next one, and I'm making an array of chickens in a chicken class. So basically what this class is, when I create an object of type chickens, I have this box that's also just this class. And the only thing that I'm allowed to use are the methods that I'm creating here. I do not have access to this array list once I've created it. So we'll discuss that more after we've written all these methods and then we go to a client class. Okay, because some of you had a little issues with that when we did the array of references thing, and I skipped the last piece, and it did not go well. Okay, so first thing you have to remember, when you are doing this, is if you have an array that is part of your fields. So this only has one field, okay, but there can be more. Remember that the constructor, this is the constructor because it has the same name as the class, chickens and chickens, so it's the constructor. It needs to create an array of chickens, I guess I should have written that, of size. So all I need to do is instantiate it. So this is the reference. I need to do the equals piece, but the equals piece goes here. That's all that needs to happen. So I do chicks, and then I have to create my array. So new, it's called chicken. It should be a capital C, but I messed up. And then here, this is the size. That's all that's needed there because it only has one field, and that's all that's really, unless there's something else to do, unless there was another field of some sort for me to instantiate. This is all I'm doing. So arrays and array lists, when you have them as a field, you need to instantiate them here. So this is the line of code for arrays. So remember, when declaring arrays, it's square brackets everything. There's no methods that go along with arrays. There's no methods that we use. So there's no get, there's nothing like that. All we use is the brackets to access each piece. So what this one wants to do, it wants us to add a chicken in a spot. Now, what it's telling us here, this is like a precondition. The spot has to be greater than 0 and less than the length, and I screwed that up. There shouldn't have been parentheses on that length. Okay, so since it has to be in between, we know that there's not going to be an out of bounds. So all we have to do is add a chicken to that spot. So it's using the word add, but that's not how you add things in an array. So in an array, what we need to do, it's called chicks. So in the spot, I just have to put the chick. Okay, so arrays use the equal sign all the time. Array lists do not. So whatever the spot is, chick is a type of chicken. So all I have to do is put it in there. Okay, so we have to remember this later. Blah. Okay, next. So this one here is write a method called count eggs that returns how many chickens lay eggs. So what we need to do is we need to traverse this array. So if I look over here, how many of them lay eggs? Well, how many of them lay eggs? This is probably the one I'm going to be using. But remember, this has to be accessed. Each individual object can access this, not the entire array list. So what I need, holy crud. These are arrays, okay? So now, when I'm doing this, I need to go through this. Oh, what just happened? Wow, that was freaky. So we're creating, I'm going to use blue. Holy free holies, Batman. There we go. So public int, I'm going to call it count eggs because it's going to be returning, well, it's called count eggs, but since it returns how many is counting something, and counting something would be an integer. So sometimes you have to decide the type. So if I have to count them, then creating a variable to keep track of how many I have is probably the best thing I need. Okay, then I'm going to go through this array. So I can use a regular for loop, but since I don't really need access to the index, I can use an enhanced for loop. So remember, an enhanced for loop, the type, it's because I'm touching them, whatever, it doesn't matter. The type that the array list is, so the type of the array list is chicken. The name I want to call it, I just want to use X so it's short, but you can call it anything. And then the next thing is the name of the array list. So I believe it's called chicks. Yes, chicks. Great name. Okay, so X is another way. If we used a for loop, it would have been chicks bracket I. Okay, that would replace the X. So with arrays, we use square brackets to access everything. This one, however, since I'm going through it in an enhanced for loop, I do not need to do that. So I'm going to go through it. And one thing you want to make sure, because array lists, oh, for the love, since arrays are, now I lost my train of thought. Yeah, okay. Oh, since arrays are set size, you could have less in there. And you can't remove things from arrays. There's nothing like that in there. If you want to actually access one of them, by searching through it, there might be one that doesn't exist. So the problem is when one doesn't exist, you might get a null pointer exception. So you often have to make sure that X is not null. So that's the first thing you want to be sure of. And when you do it first, it makes it so the next one won't cause you an error. So I just want to remind you of that piece. Oftentimes, they make sure that you don't have to do that. They say there's always something in each spot, but we're not telling you that here, so you have to check if it's null to begin with. So if it's not null, meaning if there's something in there and it lays eggs, I'm going to count that value. Okay, and then remember at the end, return count. So I created it, I increased it, and I returned it. Okay, so that's that one. Write a method called oldest. So this is the maximum thing that we keep going through. Some of you still have a little issues with it, but it's the same every time, really. There's many different ways to do it, and those of you that do it the elegant ways, I guess we could call it. Oh, it wants to return the oldest chicken. Since it wants us to return the oldest chicken, it's going to be returning a chicken. Okay, so if I'm returning a chicken, what's it called, oldest? That means my return piece is going to be a chicken. So it's going to be of type chicken. So it's going to be a reference to the oldest one. And that's kind of why I wanted to use this one. Some of you are having an issue with having a reference being returned and then used. Okay, so I wanted to go through that. So there's many different ways to go about the oldest, but the most basic way is to create an oldest. I'm just going to call it max for ease of use. And when I do this, the max, now whenever we have a max, we start at the smallest possible value. And if we're looking for a min, we start at the largest possible value. So, or you start at the first spot of the array. So you could also start there. So I'll do both of them here. So integer dot max underscore value. So remember, use your reference sheet. They have these. The alternative would be max equals chicks 0 dot get, what am I doing? Age. Okay, so either way of these is fine. This one is already looking at one value. This one is just assuming you don't know. Okay. Oh, this should have been min. Why didn't someone stop me? There we go. That should have been min value. So I just said it and then I didn't do it. All right. So then it's like you're in class. It's fun. This is fun for you. Okay. So then this one, yeah, I guess you could go through this one in an enhanced for loop, but I would like to just show you how to do it without, just so that, because lots of you are more comfortable with this. So remember when you're doing, we're going through chicks here. So it's chicks dot length with no parenthesis, and that's why I made that mistake before. I crossed out the parentheses. There's no parentheses on the length because it is a field. It is not a method. Like size is a method for array lists. Length isn't. But length is well, I'll shut up. All right, so then we have to go through this. So for, I probably need to keep track of the index too. I'm just going to keep track of this is the biggest index. So if you're using this as your max, then you can start this at 1. It doesn't matter. You can or you can't. It doesn't make any difference. I mean, it's just you're going through one extra thing, so it doesn't matter. So again, I'm going to check to make sure it's not null. So I'm going to check if chicks I is not null. And so this is just making it so that I realize if it's not null, it's got something in it. It's just making sure that that when I'm checking the chicks I dot, if this one is null, you get a null pointer exception. So it's checking to make sure that's not null. So I'm going to get the age. And if that age is greater than the max, then I am going to keep track of the index. So you can either keep track of the index or keep track of the actual chicken. Doesn't make any difference. So the index is equal to I. This is fun. And the max is that value that I just did. So it's chicks I dot get age. Okay, now there's many different ways to do this. Some people like to make variables, whatever. As long as the basic pieces are there, it's fine. So this is it. And so what I'm going to be returning after I've done this for loop, and so I'm outside the for loop right now. Whatever. I'm outside the for loop before the end. I'm going to return the chicken at that index. So it's chicks I, index. This was the maximum that I was using. So this is the max index, so I'm returning that index. So instead, if you had a chicken here, you could just return the chicken. So what it's actually done is it's created a reference to the oldest one. So whenever you create a reference to the same object, you're creating what's called what I like to call a joint account. So if I want to write a method, oldest is cute, all I have to actually do is find the oldest one, which I just did. And what it has created, it's created a reference to it here. So let me just change the color so you don't, sort of. So this one right here has created a reference. So you have all this, you have this array list with all these things in here. Technically, these little boxes are not inside the array list. Inside the array list is just pointing at the object. So in this case, this one is going to be the oldest one. So this one's pointing at that. When I return it, so if I call, I'm going to write the header in just a second, but if I call the oldest here, this one is also, it's returning this, so whatever is returning to, it's also pointing at that one. So if I were to run a method on this, it's going to have those, it's that method. It's that object. So it's basically oldest dot, what is it? Is cute. I couldn't think of anything else. Okay. And this is all that needs to be done in this method. I also have to write a method header. That should be a lowercase o, but you don't care. Okay, and this is all that needs to be done for this one, because both of these, when I run this one, it's referring to the exact same one that's right there. They're both pointing at the same one, so if I were to increment it, or if I were to do some sort of math on this, if I could, it would affect both of them. Okay, and then finally we have these. I just want to make sure you're aware of how to do these pieces. Create an object of type chickens. So if you create an object of type chickens, I'm going to call it coop. What I have to use is the constructor that I created right here. So it's this. It's not the array list or the array. It's the chickens. It's that constructor that I need to use. So I come back over here and I create a new chickens. What did I have to put? So of size 3. Okay, so that's the number, that's the size that goes there, that gets sent and creates an array list. So what's actually just happened is I've just created an object. So this is my object. And inside that object, there is an array list with 3 spots in it. Okay, so in order to get into this array list, I would have to get into the object, and then into the array list, and then into each of those objects, if I want to get into those objects. So that's, unless there's a method that can do that, you can't do it. So you have to use only the methods that you're given or that you've written. So add a chicken to each spot. So I have, since I want to add a chicken to each spot, I need to use this one. This is add. So it doesn't matter how it was actually done. I want to add, I have to put the spot and the chick. Okay, so that's what I have to run. So the spot, so I need to do, so I'm adding it to coop. So it's coop dot add and then spot. And this one I have to create a new chicken. So it's comma. It has to be an actual chicken. So I need to run the instantiation side of the new chicken. So here's one, hen solo. And we'll put him, oh, sorry. Yeah, the spot. So the spot, hold on. I was so excited about my names of my chickens that I got excited. So the spot here, let's give it a spot. So we have 0, 1, 2. So I'm going to add them in order. You don't necessarily have to. But okay, chicken, that's add. So I'm going to add to the first spot a new chicken again. the one spot, let's call it, and we'll call it Shakira. And we'll make him 1 pound or 1 years old. This is age, right? You have to do one that's a wheat. So here I'm adding another one. And let's add Cluck Norris. And we'll make him 4. I'll put the age of the second chicken. So this is what I was talking about here. If you have, this is the coop. Inside the coop, there's an array list, and then there's other things. There's methods I can run and all that kind of thing. But this is an array. So that array, it works just like that with array lists. It's just the notations are different, the syntax. I have to get into the coop, and I have to get into the array list. There's no method that allows me to do this. This cannot be done. I cannot get the age of the second chicken, unless I created objects that I already knew that. So I cannot get in there and then get in. It's the object. There's too many keys, and I don't have them. Okay, and then write a code that output how many chickens lay eggs. Well, that I can do. It's just a system.out, and I just run that method. So I'm outputting the coop, and since I have a method called count eggs, that's the one that counts how many that lay eggs. That's all I have to do, and they would all work. All right. I hope this helps. I hope some of you are actually watching it. That would be cool. All right. I know it's long, but thank you, and you are wonderful kids doing a fantastic job. Bye.